Yes, indeed. That's sight and sound of Wuye. That's one of the areas where the commissioning will happen today in Abuja. Well, it's a lovely morning here today. 27 degrees centigrade, humidity also not bad, I tell you. So it is indeed a lovely scenario. So glad to be here today.
Well, you know the beautiful thing about this hill, apart from the fact that, you know, hikers can hike the hill, as you're seeing there, with people right there. You see it as you're coming into the Federal Capital Territory. So if you have a peek, you see that the city gate is right there, somewhere also very close to the National Stadium, the MKO Abiola Stadium, but also entering the district of Wuye on the other side. So it does border two major areas. The area entering the city and also another community, the Wuye district, where there will be a commissioning today. So quite a sight to feed you. And look at that. Look at that, Chamberlain.
Wow.
Really beautiful. And
right now that
it's a rainy season, so it's all green and lush. You can admire the beauty of the city from the peak of this particular mountain. The mountain in Wuye, or should I call it a hill? Sometimes I'm confused as to the difference between a hill and a mountain. But hey, if you know the difference, you can tell me. It is what it is. The site certainly is what it is, and it's beautiful. 27 degrees here in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory. Humidity too is not bad at all. Welcome to Sunrise Early. The sun has risen here. Not only in Abuja, I hope it's shining bright in Lagos, Ayo.
Absolutely.
I hope the rains are not out yet, are they?
Oh, no, absolutely. We're still enjoying the beautiful thing, but, you know, I can't get over this sight. You know, guys, again, forgive me. I'm calling Nollywood out. I mean, just imagine that Lion King was shot on this hill. See, where that guy raised the lion, said, the benya, whatever it is that he said. That's what I see. Oh, gosh, this is beautiful. Anyway, back to reality. That humidity in Lagos is right now something in the region of 86%. Our weather is 28 degrees. Good morning and welcome.
Yes, indeed. So glad you could all join us here today. So good morning. I'm Chamberlain Osal.
I'm Malcolm Yusuf.
Yeah, so we already told you that there will be commissioning happening today. Yeah. All right. So as you know, so we'll bring you all of that scenario as well much later today. But Ayo, just go ahead and tell us about what do we expect from the papers this morning.
Oh, coming right up. Let's take you through some of the papers we have lined up for you this morning. Vanguard newspaper. 1 year in office, my government walking the talk. Tinubu, and look at what the writers say. Feds Nigerians for 25 years of unbroken democracies. Says we must build a nation for generations unborn. Flags off. Recitation of new national anthem, Nigeria we hail thee. To forward 2024 supplementary appropriation bill soon. National Assembly expecting your appropriation bill. Akpabio tells Tinubu. The details you'll find on the inside pages of the paper this morning. Look at the front page of the Daily Independent. Tinubu asks Nigerians to work together to build the nation. Says no amount of aid from abroad can help Nigeria. Assents to bill reintroducing old national anthem. OK 7 months free ride on Abuja light rail. National Assembly says it's delighted with President's performance. All of these you'll find on the inside pages. The Nigerian News Direct leads with, no amount of aid from foreign countries can help us. Tinubu charges lawmakers. Inaugurates National Assembly Library. Says commuters to enjoy free train rides on Abuja Metro Line until year-end. Details of that story you'll find on page 2 of the paper this morning. The Daily Times is interested in the Kano Emirship tussle. CGN summons CJ FHC and CJ Kano High Court over conflicting courts' orders, as the NBA calls for judges, lawyers' sanction over their roles. Kano government bans public demonstrations. Story is on page 2 of the paper this morning. That picture on the front page is that of several wooden shanties along Tejosho Canal which were gutted by fire at Tejosho Street yesterday. The details you'll find on the inside pages of the paper this morning. The Nigerian Observer leads with 75 million Nigerians to benefit as FG commences 75,000 naira cash transfer. That's the lead story of the Nigerian Observer this morning. Details on the inside pages. Business Day has Tinubu's poor reform execution has investors wanting more. What does that mean? Check the details out on the inside pages of the Business Day newspaper this morning. And those are the papers we have lined up for you this morning, which is your own take.
One of the ones, of course, the one that everyone is talking about now is the national anthem, the old new national anthem. We're going to definitely talk about it later on this morning, but it's something that my colleague Chamberlain has spoken to it. So what do we call it? Do we say the new national anthem, or the old new national anthem, or the old national anthem reborn? I don't know, but Chamberlain, what's your take? Okay. Well, we're going to get back to them in a bit, because that is something that everyone is certainly talking about now. What is also instructive is that, look, whether we like it or not, it is the law now. It is the official national anthem of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and it is what we have to live with. We're going to get into our conversation in no time from now, but just to also let you know that one other thing that should be interesting all of us, as at this morning, as we speak right now, is the fact that it's 1 year already. Exactly what would you say your take is on Nigeria in this administration, 1 year into this administration and 25 years into the Fourth Republic? It's the first time in the history of Nigeria that our democracy has lasted this long. The first anniversary, well, First Republic lasted, I think, about 6 years. Second Republic lasted about 5 years. Third Republic hardly even took off. Because there was no Third Republic president. And this Fourth Republic is one we have had for 25 straight years. All of the turbulence and everything that has brought us here has brought us thus far, exactly where you are now. Let's take a quick peek at this particular report before we get into our conversation today.
Journey. For the first time in the history of the Fourth Republic, President Bola Tinubu is attending, not to present the budget. Minutes past noon, President Bola Tinubu, accompanied by the Vice President, is admitted into the Green Chamber, where a host of past lawmakers, as well as governors earlier admitted, are present. President Tinubu has just signed the National Anthem Bill 2024 into law, prompting the joint sitting to jettison the 46-year-old anthem, standing in respect as a different tune reverberates. In his welcome address, the president of the Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio, explains that it is not a day for long speeches.
You just greet us. You may say a word, you may wave, you may stand up and take a bow, because this is the chambers. However you do it, and thereafter, we will allow you to take your exit while we continue with our proceedings. You intend to celebrate Democracy Day, which is June 12th. But out of honor and respect for the National Assembly, you said you must pass through the National Assembly on your first anniversary in office.
See, this is our diversity. We have no other choice. It is our nation. No one, no age, no other institution or personality will help us. We are walking the talk. I will soon bring the 2024 appropriation bill. That is Just for your information.
After the brief speech, another attempt is launched to familiarize with the reintroduced national anthem.
May we now rise for the national anthem.
President Bola Tinubu immediately proceeds to commission the new National Assembly Library Complex named after him. From the National Assembly, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Well, we're going into our conversation now, and well, I guess the fact remains that we have to learn that particular national anthem. One thing is for sure, and that is the fact Nigerians all are proud to serve our sovereign motherland. Everywhere we go, we're proud of Nigeria. So, whether it's whichever part of Nigeria you come from, but I think there's some explanation that we need to get about where we are so far as a nation 1 year after. Chamberlain, Malkwe.
All right, so let's get to it. We've got two gentlemen joining us here this morning. We've got Honorable Philip Agbese, who is the Deputy Chairman, House Committee on Information. We also do have Senator Shehu Sani here with us. He represented Kaduna Central Senatorial District in the 8th NASS. That was from 2015 to 2019. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you.
Honorable Agbese, let me start with you. The President of the Senate was talking about the President passing through, but we heard him speaking there. So was that an address of a joint National Assembly? What happened?
Well, thank you very much, Chamberlain. First and foremost, Deputy Chairman, House Committee on Media and Public Affairs. Yes, not information. Right. Yes, what we had yesterday was a ceremonial sitting, the joint sitting of both chambers. It is actually a very rare occurrence in the Parliament, to have the two chambers sit. And what we did yesterday was to commemorate the 25th anniversary of the return of our country to democratic rule. To equally add, since the return to democratic rule, it has been a great journey for our country. But particularly for the Parliament, that during the military era, of course, the military will constitute themselves into both the executive and sometimes into the judiciary. So what has always been lacking, has been the institution of the Parliament. And right now that we are celebrating 25 years of democratic rule, it is quite exciting for us in the Parliament and those who went to the Parliament, to have that special celebration. Then to add, when His Excellency, the Distinguished Senate President, mentioned that he was just walking through the National Assembly, that was because, we had this sort of confusion in the air some days back that the President was going to address the joint session of the National Assembly, and at some point it was reconfirmed again that the President would not be making an official address. Reason being that Mr. President, in line with the precedent set by his predecessor, former President Muhammadu Buhari, that June 12 will be our Democracy Day. And of course, Mr. President being someone who also was in the struggle, for the actualization of our democracy, and the fact that all Democrats in the country came together and said, we must recognize the struggles, of people who worked tirelessly hard for this democracy, to celebrate, the actors, the soldiers who fought in that battle. And Mr. President said, I would prefer to give an address not only to a joint session of the National Assembly, but to the entire country when it is June 12th. And I think the President did mention that even yesterday before.
So when did the President say so? Was it here or in the communication between NASS and the Presidency?
Yeah, aside the official communication between the Parliament, of course, there's always this understanding, and not an official comment by the President, so to say, but that is
Was there a proper communication? Because we also read in some quarters that the speaker was saying something like, well, it was their error, they didn't communicate properly to the president, and so the address wouldn't happen.
Like I said earlier, we have apologized to Nigerians because the 10th National Assembly, of course, is different. We are trying to get things right and to do things differently. And it is in tandem with that, that it was our wish that Mr. President will address us May 29. But like the President communicated through unofficial communication to the leaders of the National Assembly that my address will be coming on June 12th, which we have all accepted as Democracy Day. But of course, the joint session yesterday had to go on because we have equally lined up activities between the Senate and the House of Representatives. And what I want Nigerians to see is the level of cooperation. Since we came on board, by June 13, this parliament will be 1 year in office. We'll maintain this relationship.
Yeah, we'll come to that part. Senator, what do you think about the way the whole thing came through? Because there was a lot of confusion about this.
That is the visit of the President to the National
Assembly, yes.
Yeah. Traditionally, what we know is that when the President comes to the National Assembly, he is there to address the members of the Parliament. And what has always been known is that he is there to present budget and to make a speech as far as the budget is concerned. So this idea of passing by is not something I have been used to, and I don't know what passing by means. If the President, out of all his schedules, will leave his palace and to come to the National Assembly, there should be a takeaway from the visit. But I cannot specifically say this is what has been. It is a fact that yesterday was May 29th, a day in which Nigerians are marking the return of democracy, not the return of democracy of the Fourth Republic. It is worth celebrating. But if it's not a public holiday and the day has been shifted to June 12th, so I cannot say specifically this is what I understand with his visit. But if the visit is to symbolize the synergy, the working relationship between the President and the members of the National Assembly, well, it is symbolic, but virtually, I don't think even themselves, they can say this is what has been achieved out of that. But it is an image that is sent to a whole country that we have a president marking 1 year and a National Assembly also supposedly marking another 1 year, and they are working together. But I think in a nation like this, be faced with series of problems and crises and conflicts, every opportunity of such kind should come with something productive that will give hope to Nigerians that this is what has been achieved. Yes.
Honorable, are you aware that there are lots of people who don't quite understand why the National Assembly had to hurriedly approve, and then the President sent it to this new, the old new national anthem? Because that's what it is right now. So people are wondering.
A little confused as to whether to call it new or older. National anthem.
What's the big deal about that?
Yes. First and foremost, when His Excellency President Ashwaju assumed office, he went back to the Orosaye Committee report, if you recall, and he looked into that report and said, we are going to implement that report. For me, for us in the Parliament, we appreciate Mr. President for his historical knowledge of some of the issues that were addressed in the past. And in doing that, you will recall that in 2014, the National Political Reform Conference that held in Abuja here did mention or recommended that the then old national anthem, should, be adopted again as a new philosophy to drive the spirit of nationhood.
Was that the only recommendation at that conference?
Yes. No, not the only recommendation.
So why pick up that one alone?
No, you see, as a parliament, we are looking at the issues before us and the issues that will shape the future of our great nation. And if you look at the new national anthem now, as it is today, after the bill was passed, I didn't see any haste by the parliament in doing that. Just yesterday, a few days back, we considered the student loan bill with that level of alacrity. And we all considered it, as something very necessary for the future of our country. And Mr. President, in his partnership and collaboration with the Parliament, signed that. So for us in the Parliament, we are excited because at the moment we have a president, who is collaborating and partnering with the Parliament, a president that is living up to his duties and responsibilities. Because it is one thing for the Parliament to pass good bills. It is also another thing for Mr. President to
Was that the reason Senator Bamidele gave for the national anthem?
No, you see, the reason Senator Bamidele gave for the national anthem is the spirit of building a new nation, the spirit of betting, the idea, the philosophy of patriotism. Like I mentioned somewhere yesterday, the lyrics, the lines of the new national anthem as it is today is to reawaken, rekindle the new spirit of nationhood, where we see ourselves as brothers, where we put behind our diversities, where we put behind our differences, and in working together in synergy, and a new national anthem that is particularly targeted at the leaders of our great nation. You will agree with me that leaders of this country sing and recite the national anthem more than the masses because of official engagement. And in doing that, the new national anthem is to remind us of our duties and responsibilities to the citizens of this great nation. I think that is exactly what we have today. A new spirit where, every Nigerian is seen as a leader and every Nigerian understands the responsibility.
Honorable, permit me to interrupt you because you said the political leaders sing the national anthem more than the ordinary Nigerian. And some people will beg to differ. If you go to schools all across the country, for the schools that do assembly every morning, the children are taught the national anthem. It's something that they must sing every morning to just wake up overnight.
Yes.
This took less than 2 weeks. There was no public opinion sought. There was no public commentary invited. It was just a decision of the lawmakers, and that was that.
I think that was a little technical slip of tongue. Pardon me for that. But again, back to the national anthem, how it was passed. The parliament has been elected, by the people of Nigeria to represent them and to take critical decisions on their behalf. And because the Political Reform Conference, which also suggested this in the past, of course, was made up of Nigerians from various segments, people who gathered to represent diverse opinion.
Yeah,
so
the Attorney General knew that when he said, look, don't let it be only the National Assembly that will do this. Let there be wider consultation.
No, you see, it is not, yes, I agree with wider consultation, but I also want to tell you that through our feedback mechanisms, as representative of the people, we also reach back to our people who also saw what we were doing. And I think based on that feedback, we received, majority positive reviews before we got to that
I'm sure you belong in the constituency, and I'm sure you once represented people. Did you get to give your feedback on this? Even though I don't know why I feel that you might be feeling nostalgic about the return of the old national anthem.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, really?
Yeah, you see, the new old national anthem was the anthem that those of us that are over 50 that we sang in our primary school days, and it was such a good experience, and we are nostalgic about it, and I believe most members of National Assemblies are over 50. But the problem we have now is that we should ask ourselves sincerely as a country, with all the problems that we have, economy, security, is national anthem our problem? Is it the issue? That's the question we need to ask ourselves. Now, when you go through the whole process of lawmaking, the National Assembly has not gone through the proper procedure of public hearing and public consultation before this amendment or this return of the old national anthem. So as for me, I see this national anthem as a National Assembly anthem because they have not consulted with Nigerians. Whatever law you're going to make, there should be a public hearing. Even if we have to change our national anthem, is it to go back to the colonial national anthem or is it to move forward? I would have expected the President or the National Assembly to open entries for Nigerians and say, we are changing the national anthem, so there should be submission of entries by all Nigerians on what kind of anthem should we use. Young people in their teens and early 20s can come with brilliant idea, which they will say, this is what it is. You sift through, and then now you select from them, and then you say, this is the one which we feel that will energize and spark the spirit of patriotism more than the one we are having in place. And then from there, now this national anthem will have an identity. It's either Diola from Lagos that have sang it, or Abdul Qadir from Sokoto, or Effort from Akwa Ibom. Then we see now, this is the person who has crafted this anthem. And now he become another symbol. Now, you sit down and then you now thought of what do we need to do? Something needs to be done. And then first reading, second reading, third reading. The law has been passed. The president has signed it. What kind of country are we living in? So to me, I believe that if you look at the priorities of this country, just 3 days ago, 160 people in Niger State were kidnapped and are still in the hands of terrorists. A week ago, 50 farmers were slaughtered. And then 2 weeks ago, 30 farmers were slaughtered in Zamfara and Kaduna State. And then we are ending the month with a national anthem for which from the first reading to the signing by Mr. President all happened within a jiffy. So I will now say that if we look at the priorities, my expectation with the president, one that has been in trenches, one that has been a pro-democracy campaigner, because we can attribute, the Honorable has said it, appreciating those who fought and struggled for democracy. I appreciate that June 12th is our Democracy Day because many of us went to jail for it. Many of us fought for that. And we see that as our own symbol. But part of the promise and the pledge of June 12th is to restructure the country. And restructuring has been in the front burner of national discourse and conversation. And the expectation is that the president who has been in the trenches in the struggle for democracy, by this time, there should be a template. This is how the nation can be restructured. We have a document of restructuring that has been there, and even if you are talking of 2014 National Reform Conference, there are tons of recommendations. So why only pick one? So as far as I am concerned, I believe this is a misplaced priority.
Just quickly, though, yesterday we had the opportunity to speak with a member of the National, he's an ex-member of the National Assembly. He also served 2 terms in the Senate, who's the serving minister. He says the public hearing is not compulsory. It's not a compulsory part of lawmaking. Do you agree with him?
No, I don't agree with him. Because if you have it as a procedure in terms of law, the National Assembly actually can sit down in a room and come out with a law. But you need that legitimacy. You need to carry people along. You need people to stand for it. Now, if you go through the social media and even traditional media, How many people are enthusiastic and in support of the so-called new national anthem? For people like me, people of my generation, we are happy that at least the nation has come back to our own age. but how does that help? This was before the coming of Obasanjo as a president after the assassination of Murtala Muhammad. This was it. We were so nostalgic. I thought of one day, and I had put it to our compatriots and Nigeria who held me. We remember what Nigeria used to be, when 1 naira used to be $1, when things were okay. But that is it. But we are moving forward. We have a new generation of Nigerians who think differently, whom we need to carry along, whom their support is very much needed. If public hearing is not important in terms of lawmaking, then who are you making the law for? Are you making the law for National Assembly? We are making the law for the public. So we now have a National Assembly National Anthem. This is what we have. And the danger of this is that someday in the future, you may have a new government that controls the National Assembly. And I will say they will revert back to our compatriots. So we'll be going forth and back with the issue of our own national anthem. And as a nation that has been over 6 decades out of British colonial rule, I don't see it as moving forward if we are to go backward and pick that anthem. Yeah, it appeases us because I don't find it difficult in terms of accepting the old national anthem. But when I look at Nigeria today, the challenges and the issues before us, I don't see that as a priority.
Honorable, Ayo has questions for you, but is the Shippers Bill too going to be passed with this alacrity?
Okay, the Shippers Council bill came to us some time ago. It was sponsored by His Excellency the Right Honorable Speaker, and you are aware it has gone through first reading, second reading. Just last week, Monday, we had the public hearing, which had civil society groups, government representatives, non-governmental organizations, and every stakeholder involved. Before I delve into that again, let me just quickly correct the impression Senator is trying to paint that it is the National Assembly's national anthem. As a people's parliament, we have been working very hard to address every single challenge that is confronting this nation. Recently, His Excellency the Right Honorable Speaker did convoke a summit to address the issue of security in the country. So you cannot fault the current parliament for lack of inclusion. No, we operate an open parliament, and as much as possible, we try to engage and involve Nigerians, even beyond public hearings. That is why we've been having summits, seminars.
Clearly right now, there was no public hearing for this, and there are many voices who are questioning why this happened.
Yeah, I think for us, for people who have invested with the right to represent the people, as a parliament, we considered it necessary to do what we have done. And you also agree with me that this current parliament has 8 political parties representing every segment of this country. So with the diverse views and thoughts, we are working in synergy for the good of the country.
I think he'll follow through. Go ahead, Ayo.
Well, Chamberlain, thank you very much. One of the issues that comes to me right away about this is that, first of all, before we take that, I understand, Chamberlain, that we need to take some messages. So please, stay with us. We'll be right back. Thank you for staying with us. Honorable, let me come straight to you. You know, one of the propositions of this Shippers Council, the Shippers Council bill that we understand is being considered, is the creation of a regulatory organization, a shippers regulatory organization or something like that. Tell us about that, because especially at a time when we are thinking of reducing the number of ministries, departments, and agencies, and thereby cutting costs. It will seem like some would say we are taking 1 step forward, 2 backwards.
No, thank you very much, Ayo. The Shippers Council bill, if you go through the letters of that document before the Parliament and going by the presentations made by about 99% of people who came, we are not going backward. The Shippers Council bill is to give life to an already existing agency, the National Shippers Council, the Nigeria Shippers Council rather, to be able to carry out not regulatory function, to carry out regulatory functions. And for instance, in the oil and gas sector, we have the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission. We have the downstream in the telecommunications sector. We equally have, a regulator. So what we're trying to do, especially at a time that our nation's economy is gradually moving from an oil-based economy to the blue marine economy, is to also have a regulator, so that certain checks and balances can be done under the laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So basically, that bill is to give teeth, to an already existing agency with just some sort of modifications. We are not seeking, the Parliament is not seeking, to create an entirely new agency. There's one already that is there, which is the Shippers Council. It's just to give them, the life to be able to do what is expected of them. And there are many Nigerians who participated in that public hearing. Thank God we will not be crucified for not having public hearing on that particular bill. But so far we have seen it as a people's bill, something that is going to help in reshaping, the economic life of our country. And as a parliament, we are committed to our core principle, which is encapsulated in our blueprint, in our agenda, the issue of transparency, accountability in the conduct of government activities. And so far, there have not been any opposition to the
I would say that question has
the passage of that bill.
Yeah, I would say that question has been answered, but the question still remains whether or not it's not going to be an additional weight, so to speak, on the nation's finances. I guess we'll get back to that and get to that some other time because we're running out of time. But let me quickly take this with you,
okay,
Senator.
All right, thank you.
One of the issues that I think you also mentioned here this morning, Senator Sonny, is that of communication. I don't know whether we can really say whether you can really say that there's been efficient communication. Yesterday we talked about this communication thing quite significantly. You also cited that in your response to the questions that my colleagues posted to you earlier about how the presidency has communicated a thing or two. So in terms of communicating policies, especially the ones that are going to really bite hard, what should be improved so that people have an idea this is coming, just wait for it, brace up for it, something like that?
Well, first of all, I must express my appreciation and commendation to the new information minister, Mohammed Idris, because he has not been behaving like a propagandist, and he has been always explaining public policies and government programs as friendly as it should be. And this is one of the most responsible and friendly information minister we have had in the history of this country. But I think what also needs to be improved is how people can key into the reforms and how they can actually be informed and carried along as far as the economic reforms of this government is concerned. People are suffering. Things have not been easy for the common man. And for someone in government will see that it is the price that we have to pay for what has not been done, when that is right. But there is actually the need for a continuous reach out to the public in terms of telling them when this sacrifice will come to an end and when the dividends of this sacrifice will start being harvested by people.
All right, Senator Shehu Sani was a senator who represented the Kaduna Central Senatorial District in the 8th National Assembly from 2015 to 2019. We've also had Honorable Philip Agbasa, Deputy Chairman, House Committee on Media and publicity. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on this morning.
Thank you, Chamberlain.
All right, we'll be back in just a moment. Don't forget, I would like to hear from you too about the national anthem. We'll pass it on to Honorable Philip Agbese and the members, so don't go away.
The world with Channels TV podcast and get all the trending stories. Simply log on to channelstv.com, click on podcast, select the program of your choice and listen. Our podcast is available on Apple, Google, and Spotify. Tap the expertise you trust. Touch the stories that touch you. Anytime, anywhere.
Come back. Yes, indeed. Mr. Jacob Pella is here with us. He is the CEO and founder of TAF Africa. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, Chamberlain.
It's not Democracy Day. I think
you seem very excited this morning.
Yeah, I have to be because I've seen another day.
You had democracy coffee.
No. Because there are many who slept and didn't wake up. So if I wake up every day, I need to be thankful for that day. So that's the spirit. That's how I go. And I just played my own national anthem while we were on break, so I kind of loved it. If you're wondering what it is, my boy will tell you afterwards. So, 1 year on, I know I've seen your statement about where we are and what has happened, but just for those who may not have seen it. So, is there an assessment of sort? Where are we at the moment? I mean, from your impression, are we going back or we're just there?
I think what the president has done in 365 days is, I will call it a bold step. He has taken some bold steps, not necessarily absolute achievement, but bold steps. And I can categorize them into four. One is economic rejuvenation. I mean, he inherited a very fledgling economy, and he's trying to rejuvenate and activate whatever he can do, whether it's fiscal policy or trying to get on with infrastructure and all that. The second thing is legislation. I'm very particular about the Student Loan Act that is in progress. I think I will look at the third aspect as I wrote something down. The forex system, the forex issues that he's trying to solve, and finally, the big one, infrastructure. There's been some minor gains in the area of infrastructure. I think Abuja is taking a first lift, and that's kudos to Wike, and I pray that he focuses on that and will leave the state,
but it looks as though
politics.
Did you get a sense that I'm not sure if I remember properly, that meeting, or what was it about, ensuring that there's inclusiveness in infrastructure development across the country?
Yeah.
So there seems to be some progress in that.
Well, I was going to come that I actually scored that as a downturn. And in terms of downturn, the fuel subsidy is a downturn for me because there's no clear-cut exit strategy, focus on some form of benefits. I'm a supporter of fuel subsidy removal, but the way and manner has been carried on. I think the other thing is societal discontent. People are not happy. People are struggling. People are suffering. And Chamberlain, I think the fourth thing for me will be what you just said. I call it partial inclusive governance. There's been partial inclusive governance, and these are some of the things he needs to address going forward. And finally, security issues. Security issues have not been solved, and he needs to give attention to all of that. So there are positives and there are downturns.
I like this neat summary for the president. What I think has been happening, though, is that it was in that the state government are getting away without being analyzed. And, you know, it was similar this fever, this 1 year fever kind of spread across the states as well. We see a lot of them trying to show what it is that they have been able to do as well in the last 1 year. Are there any states that immediately stick out for you?
Well, I think in terms of some aspect of benefits, dividends of democracy, I think we'll be looking at the state where he's coming from, Lagos. Lagos has been doing well. They can do better. Of course, not being sentimental, but I must also say that in spite of all the troubles that Siminalai have gone through, he's doing very well. I mean, what that young man has achieved in 4 months, which he openly said had been the only months that he has focused on real governance, in spite of all the issues he had to go through. He's achieved quite a lot, and that's what pressure can do. Pressure can produce power if it is positively channeled. I think he's done well. Akwa Ibom State have also done well. They've been in my radar and analysis.
How have they impacted the economy of those states? That should be the indices.
Well,
businesses doing. Is it easy to establish, set up your business? Those are some of the indices we should be looking at for.
Many of them, in spite of the hard economic realities, are doing their very best.
So it appears as though the best is not good enough.
Well, Chamberlain, it's hard time for everybody. And to be honest with you...
Don't forget, they were the ones who promised heaven and earth while they were campaigning. They were the ones who said, I will do. They were the ones who will go to tribunal, and they will be the ones who will say, no, I want the second term.
Well,
so they have to be judged very harshly.
Even the president said, well, I never knew how hard it is to govern until I got in there.
But don't
forget that I'm not their spokesperson anyway.
That's what I'm putting it out there for them to hear.
Analytic. Yeah, so basically, I think some of them have done well, given all the issues that they had to deal with. Some of them have done well. Some needs to do better. And, of course, going forward, we'll see what effort.
What about
issues? I was about to say, you know, they have a lot more money. I mean, as a result of this fuel subsidy removal, you know, there's been more accruing to the states.
Absolutely. But also, there are also more issues around inflections and the rest of the security issues and all that. Don't forget, I'm not speaking for them, but I'm saying that some of them that have taken some giant stride, and we must recognize that. And there are some that haven't done well at all. Instead of staying in their states and taking care of governance, they are busy chasing around, going around with the president.
Some live in Abuja. They don't stay in their states. They live in Abuja.
That's exactly what I'm trying to say, Chamberlain. I agree with you. You know, many of them are just busy running around, you know, enjoying the perks of the office and not doing anything about their people. Yeah.
All right. I think there's a lot more ground to cover, but we'll just hang on and go to Business Morning on Sunrise. But don't worry. We'll have more angle on this one. In fact, we'll have an addition to also take a look at some of what is playing out or has played out over the week, and that will be after Business Morning on Sunrise City ends. And so we'll be heading over to Inijamaka with that one.
Thanks, Chamberlain. Well, I'm sitting in for Ini this morning. Good morning, good evening, wherever the world you might be watching from. It's Business Morning, and let's get to the top stories that set your agenda. Now, let's start with the oil market. We're seeing a lot of seesaw movement right there. It was green yesterday, but today we're seeing back to, that downtrend back again. $83.52 a barrel. That's what we have for Brent crude, 0.1% down. $79.19 a barrel, 0.4%. That's for the U.S. grade there, WTI. It was trading above $80 yesterday, but now back below that level. We'll see if that actually holds going forward. But an expert I spoke to on technical analysis said that $78 per barrel for WTI, that's the price to watch. Definitely in this market. Well, meanwhile, it's still oil and gas industry. It looks like Seplat and ExxonMobil have finally reached a settlement agreement deal on the sale of offshore assets belonging to ExxonMobil. This information was contained in a post on the official page of the NNPC Limited this morning. Can be recalled that this deal that was stalled for a while due to issues on, cleanup arrangements among other issues. So definitely we have a deal right now when it comes to that ExxonMobil and Seplat divestment deal. Well, let's get a check on the FX market now. See NAFEX appreciated by 116 naira to fix at 1,263 naira. That's for NAFEX. The previous close 1,379. So it's up about 8.39% yesterday for the close. For the NAFEM, though, we're seeing weakness there. Did get to 1,173 naira to the dollar, but now it closed at 1,329 naira. So we're seeing a lot of volatility right there in the FX market. To some company news now, we see Dangote Cement PLC announced final dividends of 30 naira per share for the period ended December 31st, 2023. The dividend is subject to appropriate withholding tax and approval and reflects a 50% increase against the dividend declared in the previous year. It was about 20 naira last year. So definitely we'll see how that impacts the share price later today. We'll get that close later on news at 10 today. To some other news now, we see payment of fuel subsidy by the federal government has ended, contrary to claims in several quarters, and that's official confirmation made by the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Oil, Senator Heineken Lokobiri. He gave the affirmation earlier yesterday on the special program marking the first year of President Bola Tinubu's administration. The minister also highlighted some of the expectations awaiting the country's oil and gas sector in the later part of this year.
As rightly, said, when the day was sworn in, he said subsidy is gone. President was misunderstood, clearly. The last government, Buhari's government, did not make any provision for subsidy in the 2023 budget. Whether anybody said it or not, subsidy was gone. What the president, in his characteristic style of speaking truth, was to say, look, in the last 2023 budget, there is no provision for subsidy, so subsidy is gone. And I can confirm to you that subsidy is gone. But that doesn't mean that, from time to time, there could be strategic intervention from time to time. In the last 1 decade, there has been no investment in the oil and gas sector. Reason? The PIA took longer than expected to be passed, and so there was no stable governance regulatory framework. When this government came, we've been able to rekindle the confidence of the investing community. And I can assure you that between now and the end of the year, we'll do much more than $20 billion. I can assure you that. And the reason why this is happening is because investors now have confidence that there is a stable regulatory framework. The President himself has signed some executive orders that are targeted at ensuring and assuring the public that, look, Nigeria is ready for business.
All right, time to look at the retail markets in Nigeria. Now we see supermarket sales in Nigeria that rose to the highest in at least 6 years. In 2023, latest report by Euromonitor International shows that formal supermarkets overall sales increased by 24% to 370 billion naira last year from 298.1 billion in 2022. That's in the midst of high inflation and high cost of living. at this time. Well, joining us now for this conversation is Professor Uchenna Uzo, Professor of Marketing, Academic Director of the Africa Retail Academy, Lagos Business School. Great to have you on the show. Good morning. Hello, Professor. Hello. Good morning, Professor. Can you hear me? Okay. So, Professor, if you can hear me, definitely it's all about inflation at this time. We've seen the inflation numbers for April. We've also seen Q1 GDP data. But I'd like to, Professor, I want to get your reaction to the Q1 GDP data that we got. It was higher than the first quarter of 2023, but lower when you look at it month on month. How are you seeing it?
Well, it's first of all, good morning. It's wonderful to be here. Happy to be back here. I see the situation as interesting from the point of view of how the consumer is evolving in this time. So one of the striking things is how more than 90% of the Nigerian consumer spend now goes to food alone, which means that the remaining 10% has to be shared across different products and services they want to have access to. And so this has made consumers to be more careful in budgeting, very, very careful, choosing carefully what they wish to buy. And they are now hunting for the right bargains everywhere. School fees are being bargained for, hotel rates are being bargained for, even taxi rides are being bargained for. And there's a high sense of price sensitivity in the market. The other interesting trend coming from the current situation of inflation is the rise in the second-hand market. So we're seeing that, and by second-hand, I'm not just referring to goods brought in from outside Nigeria that have already been used and sold back here in the country, but I'm also referring to already used Nigerian products that are being sold again to other people to use. We're seeing a rise in that. And then people are choosing to buy in smaller units. The luxury products, the entertainment-based products are now products that are used once in a while. And I think those who consume premium brands increasingly are preferring to consume them socially when they are in events, while when they're at home privately, they are recovering from that huge expenditure by buying smaller or lower brands to recover from the cost. So we are seeing a higher state of brand disloyalty. People are switching to different alternatives because that is what their pockets can afford at this time. So Those are the trends that we see.
And talking about this time, definitely dealing with a high cost of living, also dealing with high inflation, highest number in a couple of years at this time. But how would you describe the state, of the Nigerian consumer at this time? We know in other climes, they try to give us data on the strength, of the consumer. So I'd like to get your, how is it looking for you, the Nigerian consumer?
For me, the Nigerian consumer, if I were to use one word to describe the state of the Nigerian consumer at this time, I would say the Nigerian consumer is a hustler. A hustler, I think, is a very good description. Picture a situation of a lady whose name is Kemi, 31 years old, who is a party planner. She's also a lawyer. She's a pastor in church, and she's also a tech guru. The same person has multiple professions, multiple lives, all because she needs to try to earn a good living. And as you go down the social cadre, we are finding people living multiple professional lives, multiple work lives in order to get going, in order to survive in this economy. And it's an interesting trend because those of us in business tend to look at the consumer from one lens only, when there are many other things happening in the life of the consumer. Beyond being a hustler, we are seeing a lot more aspiration in the way people buy and in the way people choose to engage Nigerian consumers are very aspirational. And even this tough economic time is not taking that aspiration away. The interesting thing that we see is that those at the lower cadre, those that you may call at the bottom of the pyramid, are even more aspirational than those at the higher level in terms of their hope that their incomes will rise, even though the economy is tough and inflation continues to rise. The other bit that is of interest is that we see an increased sense of doing it yourself. So Nigeria is a do-it-for-me market. Nigerian consumers want to be served. They want those who sell to them to give them unique service. And they'll prefer that you do it for them than that they do it themselves. It's interesting that in the banking sector, close to 60 to 70% of those who use banking mobile apps prefer to go to the bank and have the banking agent install those apps on their phones for them than download those apps themselves, which just tells you what the service aspiration is in Nigeria. But I think the most interesting angle of the state of the Nigerian consumer is the level of price sensitivity. Everybody wants a discount, everybody wants a rebate. Even the premium customers right now are looking for better deals. And these are some of the things that I see to be the state of the consumer at this time.
Yeah, quite interesting, the state of the consumer, because every time I go to the supermarket, I get surprised. The items are so few, but I'm paying, so much at the till. But we've seen data from the NBS that's showing that retail trade was the second highest performer and contributor to Nigeria's GDP in the first quarter. That's after agriculture. Why is retail performance stronger than other major sectors, such as telecom and oil and gas?
So retail trade is huge, and we tend to underestimate it. For instance, in Nigeria at the moment, they're estimated to be over 600,000 retailers, and they employ over 1 million Nigerians. 70% of them are women. And the other interesting trend is that 40% of online and mobile transactions in Nigeria are from the retail sector, which just tells you how retail is the backbone of the economy, the backbone of agriculture, telecoms, financial services, you name it. Retail is omnipresent, retail is everywhere. And it just shows you how perhaps this is the time for the government to also look at policies that will make the environment of retail more friendly, because there's a huge opportunity for growth embedded in this sector. Retail is not just buying and selling, as certain people tend to see it as. It is a science. It is a way of being close to the consumer. And the reason why retail is doing so well is because retail is the closest channel, the closest sector to the consumer. You want to get to the consumer, you need to go through retail. And that is why I think that's a sector that we need to pay closer attention to.
All right, so there's also a surprising phenomenon there within the retail sector. We're seeing neighborhood supermarkets, outperforming shopping malls, and that was in 2023. And they said the trend is projected, to continue this time. What's your take on that?
Yes, it's real. So supermarkets are outperforming shopping malls in Nigeria. And the reason is simple. The supermarkets are closer to the consumers' hearts than the shopping malls. They are in your neighborhood, they are in your face, they are smaller. They tend to sell certain products at cheaper prices than you will find them in shopping malls. And even in many supermarkets, you'll find a wider assortment than you would find in the shopping malls, where you have more limited assortments at higher prices, and not everything you need is always there, compared to a supermarket setting. There's also the social bond that people tend to have with their favorite supermarket, favorite seller. And the supermarkets in Nigeria are getting service right when compared to the shopping malls. We are seeing that they're able to position certain people to attend to people as they buy. Don't forget that Nigeria is a do-it-for-me market, and this is the reason why people are choosing to patronize supermarkets a lot more than they would do. So perhaps there's something that shopping malls should learn. Innovation is also stronger in the supermarkets. So many supermarkets are trying quick commerce. Some have even moved into food businesses. You'll be surprised to find that out, that they are doing food restaurant-based businesses alongside selling in their brick-and-mortar outlets. And some are experimenting with e-commerce as well. So these are some of the trends we see that are making supermarkets outperform malls, and we envisage that that trend is likely to continue.
Right, and definitely it's a tough time for businesses and consumers, generally. And you did talk about, customer loyalty earlier, but talk to me about how businesses can grow customer loyalty, in Nigeria's current economic state.
Yeah, every business wants to keep their customer for as long as possible, but the reality is that the customers are looking at moving as fast as they can if they get something better. So in order to keep the customer in this difficult, in this turbulent economic times, I think there are three things that would be useful to consider. The first one is consistency. Every business needs to be consistent in offering high-valued experiences, good offers to the consumer. It's very easy to say we offer something, but it's very hard to be consistent at offering that at scale. And that's one of the biggest challenges Nigerian businesses have, consistently offering value at scale. But if you can get consistency right, I guarantee that there'll be loyalty. The second one is transparency. So consumers want us as businesses to be more attentive to their needs, attentive in the way we offer experiences, attentive in the way we run our businesses, attentive to their lives. And the higher the attention to the consumer, the more likely that they want to spend on the brand. And this is what our data we've collected shows. But I think that the third and most important strategy to guide maintaining customer loyalty in this difficult time is flexibility. Flexibility in the sense that we may have started with a business model that worked for us. But what we are realizing now is that last year's future, or the past future, the past, what you might call strategy for success may not guarantee future success. And so this is a time for businesses to be very flexible about how they choose to engage the consumer and to try things that are new and that are different in order to secure this loyalty that we all need. So those are my thoughts in that direction.
All right, Prof, before I let you go, definitely another big issue, it's been with us for the longest time, profiteering. We see some sellers always trying to take advantage, of the consumer, in Nigeria. Is there a chance we can ever check this issue?
Yes, I believe there's a chance to check it. Profiteering, the problem with profit maximization and profiteering is that it makes the business fixate on success at all costs, thinking that the means will always justify the means. And it makes the business to be too short-term minded when we should be thinking longer term. But there are cases of businesses that are choosing to be more long-term minded and are trying to look for mutual benefit. So it's not about not being profitable, but it's about creating profit, generating profit in a way that benefits all stakeholders, including the consumer, rather than profit maximization. And I think the way to make this institutionalized is just to democratize and show what the data is saying. Businesses that are living just for profit at all costs don't end up surviving in the long term. Whereas those that think about shared value are the ones that end up staying. I think the more we can share this information out there to businesses and guide them, the greater the chances of success.
All right, I guess let's hope the consumer in Nigeria survives 2024. Definitely. Thank you so much. It was great having your perspective, Professor Uche Nauzo, Professor of Marketing, Academic Director of the Africa Retail Academy, Lagos Business School. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. It was great to be here. Have a wonderful day.
You too. All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we head straight to the commodities market. That's in a moment. Do stay with us. This is Business Morning. All right, let's get a check on the commodities market now. See what's playing out with demand and supply. Dumebi Oluwole joins us, senior analyst at FDC. Great to have you, Dumebi.
Great to see you again.
Yeah, I'm sure you heard the previous interview there. We're trying to find out how the Nigerian consumer is holding on at a time like this. We're seeing food inflation 40%. Who knows where it's going to be, this month? How are you seeing it?
I mean, we've already seen the trend of food inflation, and we don't think it's going to abate anytime soon, unfortunately, simply because a lot of the issues that are currently fueling food inflation in Nigeria are still very structural. And this is one of the reasons why consumer confidence is left unanchored, even when interest rates are high. Because people are still asking the question, okay, if you increase interest rates, how does that affect the price of Gary in the market? Prices are significantly
We've also
skyrocketing.
Heard, some say the interest rate hikes also stoke inflation. We have that part too.
I mean, but that aside,
yes.
Just looking at how it's affecting consumers is one of the reasons why we keep hammering on the fact that there needs to be a significant cohesion in complementary fiscal policy measures that will support what the monetary policy authorities are doing. Reason being that the monetary policy levers to anchor inflation or even reduce inflation are not enough to reduce Nigeria's inflation as of today, simply because these structural issues, they sit within the basket or sit within the table of fiscal policy authorities. Agricultural productivity is low simply because we're having significant increase in post-harvest losses. Logistics costs are high. Insecurity is still a menace affecting food production. And then when you look at the importation of food into the country, there's still lingering, import control measures that are affecting food supply into the country. In the last Article 4 review by the IMF, that was a significant thing that the IMF hampered on, simply because food inflation, food items, they account for about 51% of the total items in Nigeria's inflation basket. And what that simply means is that an increase in food prices will significantly nudge the headline inflation. So if we don't address the issues affecting food production, and all of this that I've mentioned sits within the fiscal authorities. If those issues are not addressed, we will still continue to see this spiraling inflation that Nigeria is experiencing today.
The central bank governor did say, don't expect a magic wand,
exactly.
At this time with interest rate hike. But let's look at the global oil market. We see how, energy prices play into, global inflation.
Yes.
But we're seeing some movement now. WTI got above $80 yesterday, but back below that this time. So we're still seeing volatility. What's driving sentiment in that market now?
So it's a couple of things, both demand and supply concerns. On the supply side of things, the expectation is that the markets are expecting that OPEC will maintain its output cuts, and we're seeing I think the meeting is this Sunday. But regardless, that still had a muted impact on prices. We're also seeing the fact that the Middle Eastern tensions as well are still there. That again as well, had a muted impact on prices, at least between yesterday and this morning. But the primary driver are still resident within the demand side of things. And the first thing there is the fact that, number one, U.S. crude inventories, actually stockpiles, actually increased. And that has an inverse relationship between oil prices. And that's because the expectation would be that demand for gasoline and demand for crude oil will decline from the U.S. U.S. inflation data is also coming out this Friday, and the expectations are that the U.S. Fed will keep interest rates higher for longer. So with that as well, the expectation is that demand for crude oil and also gasoline will decline. Then as well, you look at the demand side issues from China. So even though the IMF recently, revised upwards their growth forecast for China to around 5%. 5%. Yes, around 5%. It's still not giving. Still, the macroeconomic conditions in China still point to bearish demand for crude oil. So the expectation is that with time that demand might pick up, maybe between the end of the second quarter of this year. That's by June. But then again, it will start declining again. The IMF is quite pessimistic on China's growth outlook, and that also fed into market sentiment, especially on the demand side of things. But looking into the coming weeks, especially after the OPEC Plus meeting that will be taking place on Sunday, markets do expect that oil prices will rebound, but the increase might not be so significant.
Right, and definitely most investors just looking at China.
Yes,
at this
looking
point,
at
we're seeing IMF there revise their growth outlook, but they're a big trading partner with Nigeria. How does that impact relations with Nigeria?
I mean, China right now is still keeping up their import and export relations with a lot of African countries. We're not seeing that decline anytime soon, especially as other parts of the West are trying to rebound their own trade ties with a lot of other African countries. The big thing here to watch out for Nigeria and China's relationship is the increase in importation from China, and we don't see that slowing down, at least by so much anytime soon. And the reason is because we're not still producing enough, especially for a lot of the commodities that we do import from China. With China's current exchange rate compared to Nigeria's, we'll still see that China is still a better bet for Nigeria to import a lot of commodities into the country. And the reason why that is not going to slow down anytime soon is simply because, again, I said we're not producing enough. Number two, we also need to keep prices in check, right? So encouraging or leaving imports as much as it has been over the past few months, that is likely to continue. So looking at the trade relationship with China and Nigeria, that's import dependency now, for lack of better words, will still linger for a lot of the commodities that we get from them.
Right. Definitely, we'll keep watching out for China at this point, because we know how anything that impacts them impacts the global economy. Thank you so much, Dumebi Oluwole, and Senior Analyst, Financial Directors Company. Thank you
for having me.
All right, we'll take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll get a check on the markets. That's the moment. Just stay with us.
The Dangote Petroleum Refinery is going to be the largest single-train petroleum refinery in the world. Dangote Industries have enormous confidence in the potential of Nigeria. Africa is like an unexplored gold mine. We know there is huge opportunities here.
What makes this project different than others is for sure the size. This project is transformation for the country and for the continent, I would say.
The Dangote fertilizer plant will transform the agricultural sector. We go for the state-of-the-art technology. It will help to create employment and to reduce the massive demand on foreign imports. It's going to have a major impact on the lives of the Africans. It's a moment of great pride.
All right, let's get a quick check on the market. Now, yesterday's close, another green close right there for the local boss, 98,818 points, breaking that key resistance level at 98,400 and something points. Volume was lower though, 7.27%. Value, 4.76 billion there. That was traded yesterday. Deal 7,781. So we'll see if we'll get another green close today, and maybe a positive week for the local boss. Well, that's it from me on Business Morning. I will give you details of today's close of the stock market later on the news at 10 tonight, and maybe another green close. Thank you for watching. I'm Laddie Williams. I hand things back over to the Sunrise Daily team.
We believe in this nation.
Yes. Well, you know why? Big debate. Some say this is national anthem they want, not the one that shall be passed. So they think that this will do it for them. Unfortunately, I cannot say all in favor say aye. I cannot say that, can I?
Well, we could. We can actually. We can actually. That's why we have social media platforms, and I think we're already beginning to get some feedback with regards to that. I think we got something. I'm looking for the name now. There, this feedback from Silvanus Okon, where he says the old new national anthem, is it a new wine in old skin? Come on, let's be serious about nation building rather than this weak approach. Let's have new wine in new wine skin. Oh, and that's what he says.
There you go. So Lalo Akande has since joined us, former presidential aide. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. Good to see you guys here.
What do you make of this back and forth on this old new national anthem?
Yes, well, I mean, I do understand that it's a decoy. You know, the people in government have the leverage to...
A decoy?
Yes, to do certain things at their whims, you know. So somebody just had a brainwave and thinks that, oh, wow, the whole anthem is better than this. You know, throw it out there. We can do it. Let's get it done. Give them a talking point. You know, get them to focus, you know, to take away their focus from the more important issues. And hey, regularly, Nigerians fall for the bait. We keep talking about it, and then we leave the more important issues. I think that it is really a non-issue. We should move forward and hold the government accountable. How are we sorting the issue of hardship in this country? You know, what has happened to the problem of poverty? The social investment program, is it back on track? You know, what is happening? Are we paying subsidy or not? These are the bigger issues. But guess what? They've managed to divert us again.
No, Mr. Laulako, some people will actually disagree with you. They will say what you're doing is downplaying the role of inspiration. When people listen to their national anthem, when it is that they sing their national anthem, there is a sense of pride, there is a sense of can-do that comes with that anthem. And if you were to play that at a national event, say at an international football match, it will surprise you just what effect it can have on players, the spirit of will I say, conquering anything that is in their face. So can we really dismiss and say that this is a distraction going back to a colonial anthem? Is it really is that the kind of distraction that any government should engage in, assuming that were the idea?
But you see, it's working. You know, Markwe, the important thing is that the distraction is working. It is a distraction. So you and I now have to talk about whether it is inspiring. And I have to tell you, if you bring me to that top, it is more inspiring than the new, now old anthem. It is clearly more inspiring. But guess what? That is not the issue. That is not the issue. Nigeria does not have a problem of personal inspiration. Nigeria has a problem of poverty. We have a problem of economic hardship. Those are the bigger issues. We have a problem of a constitution that was given to us by the military, and we've had 25 years. Up to today, what have we done about it? Those are the bigger issues. We have to focus on the bigger issues. And I'm telling you, from the benefit of insight, this is a decoy. So and Nigerians are falling for the bait.
We complain about a constitution that was given to us by the military, but we accept a national anthem that was given to us by colonial masters. How does that make any sense?
Well,
confusion breaks the bone.
Well, that's what my colleague is saying about diversionary tactics. You know, I think there are more pressing national issues. We're talking about national anthem, and just a few hours ago, there were security issues, you know, and all that. I think there are more. We should do more on governance. We should do more on revisiting the social investment programs, which will alleviate the poverty situation in the country. I think we can do more.
Yeah, I mean,
this diversionary.
So, but the thing is this. I mean, yes, we'll have both of you, but the way the news also works. Yes. There are bigger issues, yes, but this is an issue.
Yes.
So we can't ignore that either.
No, it's a big story for you. It's a breaking news.
No. If we talk about that when it happened, it doesn't take away the fact that with the economic issues, we're still going to come back to all of those things. Because there are processes of lawmaking and things that have happened, such that if we gloss over those, wouldn't we have given our own approval to that?
I agree with you, Chamberlain.
We have to, all of those issues, I mean...
I didn't like the way and manner it was tossed on us. I mean, for a very important part of the nation, which would have reflected on our identity, I think that the public should have been given a chance to contribute whether we want it or not. And not doing that is not good for transparent governance. And the endorsement of the National Assembly is also, I heard the Senate President saying, well, you know, this is your place. You came to greet us. You know, you don't need the parliamentarians and the National Assembly shouldn't be seen as trying to endorse everything the executive arm has done. They play the role of a watchdog. So you're absolutely right. We're not saying it shouldn't be discussed and all that. We're saying, but there are better issues that should get attention of government and governance.
And I think to draw on Chamberlain's question, I think essentially what he's saying is that isn't this symptomatic of everything that is wrong? Because if we say that, you know, we're looking at 25 years of democracy, which was what the National Assembly said they were trying to celebrate or mark yesterday, depending on what term we decide to go with. And, you know, there are certain principles that go with democracy. Separation of powers, for instance, the independence of the National Assembly, etc., lawmaking processes. And some of these things have been subverted or, you know, ignored or glossed over in the process of trying to even do something as simple as changing the national anthem, as distracted. Look for Mr. Conde's words, as changing the national anthem. You know, isn't it symptomatic of what really is wrong and what we really need to be reflecting about 25 years down the line?
Yeah, it's clearly symptomatic, and you're very right on that point. It takes us away from the more important issues, and it also reflects the fact that the way we relate both the government and the people is basically on an ad hoc basis. You don't get a sense that there is an ongoing effective engagement. Now, I must concede, that this president has been more engaging, more responsive, even when you disagree with him. But you still have a situation where we don't have an effective engagement with the people, which is why, for instance, they could just go and do a new law without having a public hearing. And then there's a debate, oh, we don't have to do public hearing, we have to do public hearing. The important thing about the public hearing is that is one of the things that demonstrate the democratic nature of the process of lawmaking. I mean, it's not that you have to do what they say at the public hearing. You are the guys that have been voted to make the law, but because you are Democrats and you understand that power resides with the people, you take everything to them. You give a view, you know, a perception that it is about the people, because it ought to always be about the people. So you're right.
Because the other day we spoke about what former President Obasanjo tried to talk about. How he thinks adopting this Western liberal democracy may not have suited us because theirs was a product of their history, their culture, their way of life. And he thought that worked for them. But over here, we needed to have a second look. And at the time when we spoke about it, the prof was trying to talk to us about how systems of government do not necessarily directly correlate or guarantee development. Above all else, development. So, and those conversations ran through. And so getting a critical mass, if this is perhaps a platform or maybe play their own game, bait and switch. So if you get a critical mass of Nigerians agreeing on one thing, and then you bring in the fact that, look, we need to build a country here. So if we're talking about democracy, you can't force certain things on people. People's voices have to be heard. So that could also play out.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I agree with you. If you are a government that wants to be seen to be transparent, a government that wants to be seen as people-centered, this is what to do. You don't make decisions in your bedroom and just come out and put it on a whole nation. You know, I think there's a need for this government to toe the line of absolute transparency and the willingness to carry the people along. And that brings me to the fact that I was thinking the other day, looking at the scores of the president, the scorecard of the president on issues around human rights issues. And I don't think he's done absolutely very well in the area of human rights. Yes, there's you give people the opportunity to say whatever they want to say, and you sit back and say, oh, well, Jake said one thing, I didn't go to arrest him. That's not human. Human rights has values. Human rights has that the government ability to protect the rights and privileges of the common man and giving them the opportunity to air their views without any form of intimidation.
And speaking of which, Lalu, this for you. So, democracy, rights issues. We've seen journalists abducted, journalists arrested. It's supposed to be a democracy. So now, if they did national anthem, I thought we won't talk about it. You see, we'll dovetail all these issues connect. So if we're talking about the democracy, and then you're doing the same things that a military government would do under a democratic toga, what then is the major difference here if the people's voices are not being heard?
Yeah, and that's a very touchy issue, I mean, for all of us journalists. And it's quite sad that you even have a record under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu of this kind of harassment and abduction of journalists. You know, and the worst that I have seen is the case of Mr. Segun Olatunji, who was practically abducted. His wife was abducted. He was adopted, you know, Gestapo style. He was put inside a prison in the dungeon for 2 weeks, hands and legs chained. It's ridiculous that it happened under the watch of President Bola Ahmed. I believe that he himself will be very sorry about that. And we haven't seen any consequence of that. We haven't seen any accountability. Why did the DIA arrest that young man? And what is the accountability? What did he do? Where are the charges that were preferred against him? The matter is not even in court. I mean, nobody said anything. The way he was arrested, the way he was released, Gestapo. Ridiculous that it happened under the watch of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
So if we're talking about democracy, does it mean that people cannot speak freely again? I'm not talking about violating laws because there are rules of engagement, rules of speech. It's not absolute freedom. Of course, there are certain things because people have rights. You cannot violate other people's rights. But shouldn't we be able to speak freely as a society, as a country? If we couldn't, if our people still did during the military era, and then they did, well, whatever the consequences. So if we're talking about a democracy, I know maybe June 12th is Democracy Day.
Yeah.
So maybe that will be in the burner at the time. So these are issues that stick out now. Maybe as we assess the 1 year on of this government, these issues can't go away.
Well, Chamberlain, you've asked the question and you provided the answer. It's true. In a sane society, in a democratic society, in a society that respects rule of law, everyone has a right to air his or her opinion, you know, without any form of harassment. It's on record that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the same journalists that are complaining about what is being done to them today are the people that made you. They gave him all the support. They mirrored his values. They promoted his ideals. They built up his image. And for him to sit and watch this kind of thing happen to them is uncalled for. And he should be doing better and ask his people to do much more better. Nobody should be harassed. Nobody should be stopped from doing saying what he wants to say, as long as it's said respectfully and responsibly.
Now, to help us with this, while you were in government, excuse me, how did they get feedback from people? I know the government always have their programs lined up. This is my 1 year, this is what I want to do, this is how I want to proceed. Is there usually room for feedback in terms of how people actually feel? Because chances are, once you've locked in with your program, you will roll it out no matter what else happens.
Yeah, well, of course, there are channels, you know, of feedback, you know, and it varies from government to government. Now, I'll talk about the more, you know, public ones. So under President Obasanjo, for instance, he used to have, I think, maybe on a monthly basis, you know, meet the press kind of stuff. You know, I think President Jonathan maintained the stuff. Now, in the case of President Buhari, I don't think he was really interested in so much of that kind of public accountability. And we haven't seen much of that with President Tinubu. He still has 3 years. Maybe we'll see how it goes. But there are also agencies of government. There are offices. You know, so in the office of the Secretary to the government of the Federation, they have monitoring and evaluation. In the National Planning Office, they have monitoring and evaluation where they go out to get essential feedback. Now, when we were running the social investment program in the office of the Vice President where I served, between 2016 and 2019, what we did was, by the time we were getting to 2018, 2019, when we had done it for like 2 years, we engaged NGOs who had responsibilities for issues of human development, like Action Aid and a number of them, to actually go out and do an audit, you know, of their own and give us a report, which they did, and we got the report. So there are different ways in which governments can get a feedback from the people.
Ayo, did you feel that Timi Dakolo song when they played?
Well, I don't know which of them you are talking about right now, Chamberlain, but one thing that can be sure is, particularly about, you allow me to go back to that national anthem thing. I saw a clip from a colleague that dates back 4 years, as at 2020, this interview I had with the president as a civilian, if we can call him that at the time, saying that if he had his way, he would change the national anthem to the old one, that is now the new one. So, Mr. Akonde, if I would take that to you, where do we situate that? I mean, to some people, yes. A number of people might have thought that it was a strategic diversionary tactic, but then this is something he's been thinking about for a while. What do you think is the intention?
To the extent that we have to discuss it, I will say that yes, I'm also aware that this was something that has been on his mind for a while. And if you look at the speed with which they passed the law, you knew clearly, that this was something that the president wanted to do. And my own issue with it is that, look, this is not the priority. But then, they could do it. They have done it. Now, we are talking about it. We're not talking about other things that we should be talking about. But hey, yes, we have to talk about it. So if you ask me, now that we want to talk about it, I think the wordings of the old anthem, which is now the new anthem, is quite, it appealed even to me, So, it is more reflective of where we are indeed. We don't have a nation, and it talks about it. We want to be a nation, a lot of people are oppressed. We want a nation where no one is oppressed. We just talked about it, so it talks about our aspiration, and I think it's even more melodious, Nigeria, we hail thee. So, personally, I don't see a big deal about it at all. I think that there are more important issues, so I don't want to make a lot of argument about it. And like I said, the president and the National Assembly, they could do it. They have done it.
Well, I think one of the challenges that a number of people may be having with that, is that communication or communicating it was a problem, as with a number of other issues. So, believe me, gentlemen and lady, if there's anything I'd want greatly improved, it's engagement with the people. Particularly not just from the president or the presidency, but from other people who are nation-loving, patriotic Nigerians, all across the nation. Engagement between government and the people is a problem. We are celebrating 25 years of our democracy, and we are still talking about aspiring to be a nation. So, Dr. Pele, that question is for you. What's your assessment, and what are we missing in the area of engaging the people productively, constructively, and sustainably? Constructively and sustainably.
Well, Ayo, you've said it. You see, I think any government and any institution that wants to succeed must understand the need for effective communication. effective, not just effective, but efficient communication. You know, being able to utilize the resources you need to express what you want to do in a timely manner. I think this is what this government needs to pay attention to. If you do the right thing and you do it through the back channel, through the back door, it makes the right thing wrong. I'm very inspired by the old new national anthem. I like it. The centrality of it is service. You know, where we want to serve our father's land. There's nothing wrong with it, but there's everything wrong with it when it's done in a manner that is questionable, a manner that is not transparent, a manner that does not show openness, a manner that shows a group of people making decisions for the generality of Nigerians. And I think that is not acceptable. No matter how good it looks, the pathway to that goodness is faulty. And I think it's something we need to correct. Because if we don't nip this in the bud, other things will happen like that. One day they will make a law and tell you your house and where you live and the water you drink is no longer yours, and that's the end of it.
I think even
so we
one
must
way or the other,
speak about it.
Yeah, there are those who say, Dr. Pele, that that's already happening because there are laws that many Nigerians are held by. They're not even aware of these laws. And I'm still wondering whether there is something missing in not just the lawmaking, but the law communicating process. But let me come to you, Mr. Akonde, lastly from my side. Would you say that we over-centralize issues from time to time? The fact, again, I say this because, hey, there are responsibilities across board. We elect the president the same way we elected members of the National Assembly, the same way we elected the local government chairman, the state governor, the members of the House of Assemblies all across the nation. Every one of them has a representative. Every one of them has an assignment, and they represent people far and wide across the nation. But most of the time, we tend to mention the president or the presidency a lot more than we mention these other people who are also drawing from taxpayers' money. Would you say, like some might guess, that we are over-centralizing the issues or the institutions as opposed to those others who have powers assigned to them by the Constitution as well?
Yeah, I mean, very good point, Hayo. Now, the truth of the matter is that the way and manner that we run governance and politics in our country, the president is not only powerful, but it's also the single most influential leader in the country. And because of our experience where we had the military regime for a long time, you know, we have acquired a culture of centralizing everything. Now, so right now, we are talking about a situation where the local governments are being completely emasculated to the point that the Attorney General of the Federation, God bless his soul, God bless him, he has gone to court to say that, look, we have to ensure that it is restored. So the point is that, yes, a lot of centralization is in place, and that is one of the reasons why the country is not where it ought to be. Now, I hope that we are beginning to unravel it. And that's why I said that one of the important things that we need to do, the least thing that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu should do, is to give us a new, true federal constitution.
All right. And just quickly, just before we go, because you just mentioned that today is May the 30th. We understand that the Supreme Court will be delivering judgment, particular suit today, filed by the Attorney General. So it's certainly something. To look forward to. Significant. Maybe that will be another talking point.
Hopefully we get some good news today
from the National Assembly.
Yeah, the autonomy of the local government is very, 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 very vital.
So we'll see about that, gentlemen. Lalo Akonde, former presidential aide, and Mr. Jacob Pele, CEO of South Africa. Thank you both for coming today. I'm looking at Festus's tweet, and he is saying, Nigeria we hail thee is our anointed national anthem. Who anointed it? So glad it is back. It doesn't mean that the other pressing issues are being ignored. Like the music you hear in the background. It doesn't mean that one too will be ignored. Because, I mean, people will like it.
Well, I see this one from Shola Dauda, and it says the old and new national anthem. The most important issues in Nigeria's life is more than this, but good governance that will make life simple for an average Nigerian. Things are very tough.
So wait, guys, what if you play this music before the Super Eagles match?
Oh, Lord. I can bet that we will win every game. The
opponents will think, whoa.
What are we doing?
These guys, the passion with which they sing this song, I think we need to be careful with this team. Let's see. But if only this kind of things, this music's happen. But, I mean, guys,
thank you.
That's the show today. Thank you very much indeed. Yes, guys, thank you, Timmy Dakolo. Well done. So that's it. We'll see you all next time. I'm Chamberlain Osop. Goodbye.
Thank you for watching. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf. Ayo.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Do have a wonderful and fabulous day.